Welcome, Joe Darby, to the Only Connect podcast. Joe, it's brilliant to welcome you here as a guest today. Joe and I have known one another for a number of years, I think possibly 10 years-ish, because an unknown fact is we used to be next door neighbours.
We did.
But that isn't the reason that we've invited you on. It's more in a professional capacity. Perhaps you want to explain to the audience a bit about what you do and how you help people connect more effectively to their audiences.
Yeah, it's lovely to be here. Yeah, the Christmas jumpers was the neighbourly connection we started with. The Christmas jumpers, the Christmas jumper party. I remember it well. Yeah, connection's really in everything I do. It's always been in everything I used to do that have led to what I do now. That sounds very cryptic, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. So I used to work in theatre, directing, helping actors make connections with an audience to engage them and tell a story. But then obviously having to connect with the actors as a director, as you do, to support them to do their best work. And then I moved from directing in theatre to a complete change. Maybe not so much of a change, because still connection, but being a barrister, which is obviously a big change. And retrained to be a family law barrister, and did that for nearly 10 years. So family law, often quite tricky cases involving very damaged children and or families, all the sort of things you see in the news, all the very sad cases that come in the news, but working with those people, whether they were the people who were the alleged perpetrators or not, to tell their stories. And so connection really running through all of that. Mm-hmm. I mean, having to connect with the people you're working with on many different levels, but then connect in a different way when you're standing up and you're trying to tell them their stories. But then also connection, when you're at the bar, it's an interesting place to be in terms of being part of a family. It's a very unique working environment. You're self-employed, you're part of a chambers. That's a very unique space to be in. So that's quite interesting in terms of a connection point of view. And then I left. I left the bar because I was becoming, I suppose, a bit disconnected, which maybe we might talk about a bit more later. But I left the bar, and I now still do connection because I help people connect with their communication and speaking. So I run Voice in the Room. We do training, we go into companies and support people who are lacking in confidence, nervous around their speaking, but also want to be better at it, and want to have more impact and more engagement and more connection with the people that they're actually communicating with in real time, as real people, as human beings. And I also do hosting of events and speaking myself as well, which is connecting in a kind of different way, I guess. But really the focus, I guess, all the way through everything I've always done is about, I'm driven by, I want to help people. And so that means for the line of work that I now do, you have to connect, and helping them find how can they connect best. Mm-hmm. And in order to help them connect best, I need to find the way that I can connect with them.
Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. So a lot of connection in there.
Yeah.
But I suppose taking it back towards the start of that journey and connection, thinking back to the early stages, I guess, of pre-career as well, you shared with me that, there's periods of your life where you felt disconnected, mm-hmm. and that is quite often a theme when I have these conversations, and I've sort of talked about my own journey as well, that often it comes out of that, whether you one realises it or not at the time, a period of disconnection that then leads to you valuing connection. Do you want to talk, would you be okay sharing like a bit around sort of those early stages through to, when you first got into the stage side of things, perhaps at university and so forth, and how that made you feel about connection?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't really feel like I did fit in when I was a kid. I suspect that's true for lots of people listening in different ways. But school was a tough place for me. I found that really hard, particularly secondary school. I remember hiding in the library to eat my lunch and hoping the kids wouldn't come around the corner. You weren't meant to eat in the library, but the librarian was really nice, and she was like, if you're neat and tidy and don't, it's fine. I just didn't find my kind of people, my tribe, I guess, is what we would say now. And that was hard. And I think it really, I can look back now and I can see it now, but the way I started to, I suppose, connect with myself, but also be able to connect with other people is, in fact, it's just popped into my head now. There's a photograph of me at high school on the stage, and it's quite a distinct photograph because I was wearing a black velvet dress. We're going back to the very early 90s, and I had little plaits, braided plaits, and I was doing some kind of speaking. Somebody had captured it, and I was doing a performance of a speaking piece, and I'd started doing drama, and I realised that through doing theatre and drama and speaking and using my voice that I could actually connect with myself, but also with other people, albeit at that point with sort of a bit of a distance because you've got an audience and you're on the stage. So I think that was definitely a turning point for me. And I went off and did National Youth Theatre when I was 16. I'm going to London for the first time on my own and navigating the tube. And that was a pretty big moment because everybody else was 18. They were all waiting for their A-level results and I was waiting for my GCSE results. And I thought, I actually, even though I was younger, I fit in here. These are my sort of people. But ironically, I went to, so there's a big audition process you have to get through, and I got a place and then was acting. But that was the point when I decided I don't want to do acting, I want to do directing, because the director was horrible. I really remember him, and she just shouted at people. So I didn't want to do directing, so I wanted to shout at people, but he got to decide how the story connected with the audience, and he got to help the actors make those connections. And I thought that's brilliant. I want to be able to do that creative storytelling and engagement, to do that I need to be the director. So that kind of then started, I guess, that journey. Yeah.
Brilliant. 16 on your own.
I know.
Well done. Fantastic.
My parents were a bit worried. It was a bit. We stayed in the Tufnell Halls of Residence, which is some university halls of residence, and had to make our own way there. I remember going to a phone box to get my GCSE results as well.
Oh, wow.
That's really showing my age, isn't it? Yeah. And people like standing around the phone box, kind of waiting to find out what you got. Yeah. Never forget it.
Good memories.
Yeah.
And then you went on to go to Newcastle University.
Yeah, that's right.
And study English.
Yeah.
And you've got involved in, is it NUTS?
Yeah, the Newcastle University Theatre Society, famously known as NUTS. Yeah.
So that carried on your sort of passion and interest in stage.
Yeah. Always. I mean, I was never out the theatre then, because I took a bit of while to settle at uni. I definitely had that disconnect when I first arrived. Everybody else seemed to be sort of, and I didn't. And then I found NUTS, and then I was off, and actually directed my first production at the Live Theatre in Newcastle.
Fantastic.
So yeah.
And you spent a lot of time from that point onwards in those types of environments, be it with the NUTS tribe, if you like, or the couple of the sort of venues like Live Theatre around Newcastle, and continued that passion. And then sort of from that point, amongst other things, such as travelling to Australia and so forth, you towards a few years after university, you ended up sort of getting involved in or taking on a conversion course for the legal part of your career.
Yeah. So I did directing freelance. I had my own company, and I worked at Bristol Old Vic and various other places, and I did that for sort of nearly 10 years. And then, it was standing in a shower actually in Bristol, a bathroom with no windows. I remember it very distinctly. Deciding, I think I might retrain to be a barrister. It was always something that simmered in the background. So when I made the choice to go and do an English degree, I'd contemplated law, and everybody said, don't do a law degree, you can come back to it. Go and do something that you really love at the moment. And I love reading and books and all of that. So that's why I did that. And sure enough, they were right. I thought that now's the time. I want to use my brain, and I feel like I'm ready to do that. So yeah, I went back and did a conversion course, and then I did bar school, and then I got pupillage at Trinity Chambers in Newcastle, and was there for again nearly almost 10 years practicing.
Fantastic. What was the driver for going into that profession? Was it like a professional, or did it link to connection at all in terms of or helping people, which is?
I think it was a few things. I think one was I didn't feel maybe that I was fully connecting with myself. I didn't feel like I was using my brain enough. I know that sounds ridiculous. I was using my creative brain hugely, but I wasn't using, I suppose, my intellectual brain maybe in quite the way that I wanted to. I wanted to have the opportunity to, is the truth. And I think it was an itch I needed to scratch as well. And the speaking and communication aspect, which is hugely important when you are directing, I mean, it can totally shape how actors do their jobs, how the whole outcome of what you are creating collectively as a team lands. It's just so crucial, and different directors have different styles of communicating, and it can make or break a company, it can make or break a production, the whole thing. And having an opportunity to actually test out those communication skills and develop them, but in a different way, in a different arena, because yes, there's a lot of similarities, but standing up in the High Court and trying to persuade a judge is a very different set of skills in some ways to working with a group of actors. So there were a few things in the mix, and it sort of felt like the time was right to try and do that. And I have pretty amazing parents. I'm really fortunate, who always, as a kid and my whole life, have always said it doesn't matter what you go and do. We don't care, as long as it's a choice and you're wanting to do it and you believe in what you're doing. So it felt for me like it was the right time at that time, and so that's why I guess I went off and did it then. Yeah. And I had a really supportive other half who was like, and we'll make it work, because obviously going back to school, and I was really fortunate I got some bursaries through the Inns for a mature student. I don't think they called it that. I think it called, you've had a previous career. I think that was the one I got, and that obviously massively helped. But it was a big change. Yeah,
fantastic. Just picking up on a couple of things you mentioned there, and I think it's starting to become a bit of a running theme with this podcast, is the art of almost, or the essence of communication and verbal communication within that, and how it influences how people think and feel. So listening to what you're saying about the stage, for instance, not to make an obvious point, but I think it's an important one where, to your point, like, you know, how people deliver communication in that environment really affects how the audience then interpret that that storytelling and that delivery. So, you know, obviously it's a particular environment, but I think that carries through to general business life and how and life really. How you deliver verbal communication can really influence how people think and feel about what you're communicating, but also yourself. Interesting, the reference to the judge. I mean, you would hope that it was less about how the judge felt, and which I'm sure plays part of the role, but obviously facts and
of course
should play a role in that environment
absolutely.
As well. So that's possibly the differentiating factor there.
Yeah, the judge points. There's a few things in there. I'll come back to the judge point. I could wax lyrical all day about how important I think communication verbal communication as human beings in a business context is absolutely crucial. You can have all the facts and all the data in the world, but if you cannot communicate that effectively as human beings, because we are human beings, and yes, AI and it's all there and it's happening, but we are still human beings trying to do what we're trying to do. And I genuinely don't think, and maybe in 10 years time or longer I'll be proved wrong, but I genuinely don't think there's any substitute, not really. Because feelings do persuade us, and if you're not tapping into those, or you're not thinking about those at all with your communication, you're never going to be as successful as when you do. You do. And yes, I always say, have both. Have the facts, have the data. Okay, we're hearing this, Steve. This sounds great, and we like you, and we are connecting. And we're thinking this is a good fit. This feels like a good vibe. Yeah, but has he got anything? Oh, and we've got that. Well, okay. If you've got all that information as well, and you can show that you can walk the talk as well, and we've done this human connection. Well, definitely. Where do I sign? That's great. I want part of that. And I just think it's so important. I mean, in life as well, of course. But yeah, the judge thing is interesting, because when you're a barrister, you've got different types of communicating, so you've got to adapt. So when you're with the family in the room, mum, dad, whoever you're representing, sometimes you represent the child, so you're not with the child, but you're with their representative, the guardian. You have to pretty quickly adapt to what is going on to be able to connect with them, because if they won't connect with you, or you can't make them connect with you and help them to support them to do that, you have a much harder job when you get in there, because sometimes you have a really short period of time to go, do I think they're telling the truth? Do I need to ask some more questions? Do they trust me? Because I really need them to trust me, because what I've got to go in there and do now is going to be really difficult. And if we can't trust each other now, we're going to have a really difficult time as this trial runs on. And you've got so many things to think about in that moment. So that's one type of communication. And then when you go into court, yes, you've got to present things potentially in a very logical, considered, selective, impactful way, in the best way you can with the material that you've got. But you've got not only a judge to communicate with, you've also got witnesses to communicate with, and sometimes those witnesses are mum or dad, sometimes they're a psychiatrist or someone from the police force. So again, that communication is different, and depending on what you do with that communication depends on often how a judge interprets it. Your point about judge shouldn't be basing on feelings is a really important point. You're right, and yet judges are still human beings. Mm-hmm. So you can't, there's no getting away from that. But that's then where the persuasive element comes in. That's then where that form of can you connect, and can you connect on behalf of the people that you're representing comes into play. And then also all the other things like tone of voice and pace and all those other things when we think about speaking. Yeah. It's really interesting.
It is. I mean, even in an environment where arguably facts are as important as any environment, that the point being that we're still humans, and I often find that, and I'll give a bit of a parallel to our sort of work and where it makes a difference, but where it's a bit of a close call, the facts are there, but the facts are there on both sides. Then ultimately, how's the decision going to be made? And that can be the differentiating factor. I mean, very different, but parallel in terms of that point. When we're talking to or pitching for, in a competitive process for a new client, potential client, often we're pitching against credible operators who are very good, as well as Bondi being very good, obviously. And I truly believe that how effectively we and our competitors connect with the prospect and the decision makers and decision makers makes all the difference. In a world where we've got to presume that we're all going to present a good case as to why that business should work with us. So who are they going to choose?
Totally. I mean, when I work with companies, which I sometimes do around their presentations to go and do a pitch or pitching, that that's what we always talk about, because the money's probably pretty, maybe the budget's pretty similar that you're offering. The offer maybe is a pretty similar offer across the board with maybe some odd slight differences. So then if it's too close to call, how do they make the decision? And that's based on, can we connect? Have we got, is this human thing happening? Because at the end of the day, if something doesn't go right or something needs exploring more or changing, who are they dealing with? They're not dealing with the deck that you presented. They're dealing with you, Steve, and your team, and knowing, well, do you know what, when I ring Steve up, he answers the phone, and actually I can have a decent conversation. He listens, he'll respond, we connect. And I just, there's no substitute for that. I think that often is the tipping point. Yeah.
So it's so important, and even in, to the original point, even in a formal, arguably one of the most formal environments of a courtroom, it still has its level, a very important level towards the outcome of the cases and so forth. Well, going back to your journey, so you were working as a barrister for best part of 10 years.
Yeah.
And then decided to move away.
I did.
And created Voice in the Room.
Yes.
Fantastic. And that's all about working with people and teams to help them communicate and connect more effectively.
Yeah, exactly. Speak with more impact when you really need to. Yeah. So that can be, that's a range of things really. Sometimes it's working with leadership teams who they're already doing it. It's a good standard, but you know there's more. There's more engagement, there's more connection, because sometimes we're very brilliant with the message, and we're very brilliant with the content, and it's clever and it's interesting, and that's great. And sometimes I go and work with teams and I'm like, this is fantastic, this content's really great, this is really powerful, there's great clarity. But then when it's actually being spoken and delivered, it's just not landing. Something's missing, and that's the connection, and that's often the in a way, often I'm giving people permission to say, how would you speak this? Not, I've learned a script and I'm going to regurgitate my script, but how are you going to speak it so that it engages people and connects? And that's often the bit that's missing, that engagement bit. I always talk about empathy, which sounds very fluffy and very soft, but it really goes back to what we were talking about feelings, and we're human beings. And if you can stand in someone's shoes, see the world from their perspective, and that's your starting point, always that should be our starting point. And then you think, right, knowing all of that now, I'm thinking about my content, what does that look like? Because that's a game changer in my book, totally. And it's lovely. I love it when I work with teams and you can see pennies drop and people going, oh my goodness. And I do a 2-day course and they come in on the morning of the first day, and then we go through to the end of the second day, and it's really it's just a really lovely thing. For me, that's a moment of connection, because I get so excited, get a bit overexcited. But you can just see it, you can feel it, you can see how they've changed so much in terms of how they're approaching it, but also how they themselves are connecting with what they're doing. So instead of, this is something I've got to do, I really don't want to do it, it's a presentation, I know I've got to get through it, I don't like it, it's not going to be that great because I don't really like it and I'm really nervous. Now it's like, this is an opportunity I've got, I can engage with people, I know I can do it with my voice, in my way, the way I do it, and that's so great.
I think, just to pick up on that last point, the authenticity, it's interesting, we were talking about this earlier around like social media content, and it's an element of social media content that's talked about, and how authenticity connects more effectively with more polished content. And I think there's some alignment there with like the delivery of like verbal communication in sort of presentations or speaking and so forth, where the more you can be yourself, totally, but delivering with clarity and all the other tools that you need, but it's going to engage and connect more effectively.
Always.
I think as well, having done the excellent coaching as well on a couple of occasions, including this year.
Steve. And the team.
Yes, yeah. One of the points amongst many that we covered was the amount, on a practical level, the amount of information a recipient of, like I say, a presentation can actually actually takes away. And I think the fact that the data is, give or take, 5 points maximum from a presentation, and that is a very simple stat, but I think it's quite an effective one, because in our world, for instance, we are very data heavy, and quite rightly so. With the work that we do, we work a lot with the data behind it and present that information back. But we often work in a world where we present slides and slides and slides of data. And actually, when we went through your training, understanding from certainly in an environment where we're speaking to an audience in a room at an event, the converse almost has to happen, where it's the most effective connection you can have with that audience is distilling down to just some key messages and building the story in an effective way around that.
Absolutely.
And I think certainly for the types of, in our industry, that's a very, it's not often a remembered point.
Yeah.
And people try too hard to cover too much and lose that connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was a key learning.
Yeah.
And I think that's, for me, would be a key takeaway around, keeping it simple and authentic. To enhance the connection that you can have with the audience.
And I think there's a misconception as well that simple means kind of dumbed down or not high level, and that's I think that's totally wrong, because I think actually there's a real challenge and a real art in keeping the clarity and keeping the simplicity and still connecting. That's the key. And in a way, actually, as well, if you can really distill it down, I often say to people, somebody says, can I speak for 20 minutes? And I go, right, imagine you have 10. Literally halve it and now start. But if you can distill it down so that you're so clear on what that message is, it allows you to have that greater spontaneity around the connection and communicate it in a way that you can engage better, rather than I've got to demonstrate all my expertise and skill, and I really need them to know I'm brilliant at this, so I'm literally going to give them everything, and I'm going to go blah. And I see it all the time, and that's human nature. We want to demonstrate that, and we feel like that's important. But actually, the converse can be true. You can demonstrate that beautifully by saying, I'm so confident in our message, I'm so confident in what the answer is, that I don't need all the other stuff. And you can always, of course, say, if you need more, I can give you more. That's always available.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the same carries through and it's learning that I've had over the years with board meetings.
Oh, yes.
I definitely fell into the trap in the early days of, having board positions and so forth, that, I would talk too much and elaborate too much. And I think succinct, clear communication and making your points and less is more is often the best way to go there. And that, again, I suppose just another example really of, if you're to connect effectively with the audience and in that environment, often a senior audience, have clarity, keep it simple, and just focus on what's the most important element of what you want to communicate.
There's a wider human connection, if it's not stretching it too far as well, just around about respecting people's time as well. We are humans. Knowing and understanding everybody's really busy. I was at a board meeting last night actually for Novo Theatre, and we normally finish at 8:30, and the chair was brilliant, and she said, I think we can keep it short tonight, team. The agenda's relatively light. I think we can probably do a 7:30 finish if we're all focused and on it. Sure enough, 7:30.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
Yeah. It's good.
Within your voice in the room work that you do, and in the context of what you've shared today around your journey and how it's developed over the years, is there a key takeaway or that you beyond what you've shared already that you would like to share with the audience around how the importance of connection plays into communication? Perhaps, I know we've covered a lot, but is there one last thought that you want to leave the audience with?
I think it's the bravery to be yourself, which is a very trotted out phrase and something that we all know, but often we find really hard to do. And I share it because when I started Voice in the Room, that was something I found incredibly, incredibly difficult, because I had never worked in a business world, and being at the bar is not a business world. Yes, it's because it's a bubble, but I will never forget the first person who said to me, "So, Jo, what is your ROI?" And I went, "Sorry, what's my what?" "Your ROI. I don't know what you're talking about. If you tell me, I might be able to help." And obviously then said return on investment, and I was like, well, I don't know. I've not. Why? I couldn't answer because I hadn't heard the term. It wasn't part of my world, and I had to get okay with, actually, I'm not from a corporate background. I don't have 20 years working in professional business, and actually that's okay. And actually, I can connect in a different way, and I can offer that in a different way, and realising and getting comfortable with that's a good thing, and that brings a different perspective. And that then allows me now to have the confidence when I go and work with people who say, "Oh, but I actually speak quite quietly, and I go quite slowly, and Tony doesn't. He's, look at all his energy, Jo." And I'm like, that's okay though, because you do it like that, you have a different energy. So all those people in the room who maybe find Tony, that's quite a lot, or want something, they listen to you and they're like, brilliant, I can connect with that and I can engage with that. And the challenge that I love is to work with Tony and go, Tony, you have another gear that isn't, let's go, everything's up here. You do I? Yeah, you do. And we always find it. We find the other gear. And Sandra, or whoever it is, who thinks, I just speak quite quietly and slowly, suddenly realises at the end of day 2, oh, actually, I have a version of Tony that is my version. Yeah, you do. And so now Tony can connect with loads of different people in different ways, because he's found his other gears, and Sandra can do the same thing. And that, for me, when people have that moment of realising, oh, I've got another gear, is this still me? Yeah, it's still you, because look, there you are. Yeah, it's still me, great. And finding out what that is. So allowing yourself to communicate in the way that you feel most confident and effective is really, really important. By all means, stretch yourself, challenge yourself, understand what those other gears are, so you've got all your gears, but don't be afraid about owning those, because I think that's so important.
Fantastic. So be brave, be authentic, be yourself.
Keep doing it, keep practicing it.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jo.
Pleasure.
What a brilliant podcast.
Thanks.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
No worries.